Arts in Depth, a 1/2-hour televised program presented to you by the Cultural Council of Indian River County. I am Barbara Hoffman, Executive Director of the Cultural Council and your host for Arts in Depth. Thank you for watching. To foster connections among artists and the public that ignite the creative spirit is the vision of the Vero Beach Cultural Arts Village. The village creates an environment attractive to residents and visitors and creative professionals of all types, where visiting public and the cultural community can meet, learn, entertain, and interact in the promotion and appreciation of the visual, culinary, and performing arts. My guest today is Dana Little, Urban Design Director of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you.
The Cultural Council of Indian River County and its Cultural Arts Village leadership team have been working closely with the Regional Planning Council to develop plans for a cultural arts village. You have been stressing throughout the process the importance of being a public process. Would you elaborate on that concept, Dana?
Of course. First, thank you for having me this morning, and thanks for having Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to Vero Beach. The planning effort that's underway now, the public charrette, is critically important because not only does it involve the public and the local community and all the constituents and the elected officials and staff, but because of its duration, of being a week-long effort, we're able to have people come into the design studio, which is at the Hampton Inn this week. And we've had 20 to 30 people come in throughout the week and ask questions and give us advice and tell us what we're doing right or wrong. And it's really good because we build a rapport with the community and they see the recommendations evolve from their inception. So it's really, it's not just a simple single day engagement, but it's meant to be a months-long or years-long engagement with the community. So it's really building a relationship through this planning effort with the community to help them, really guide the future of their neighborhood going forward.
And how has the public responded to this?
It's been very, very positive. It's interesting, a number of people who were there on Saturday at our workshop at the Heritage Center have come by, but also we've had probably 60% of the folks that have come into the studio were not there on Saturday, and that's part of the purpose, is to give folks a chance to engage at their own leisure, at their own schedule. It's been very positive. We've heard ideas about parking, ideas about trees, ideas about, how can I buy a house in the area and renovate it? So we've got all varying levels of interest, which is exciting for us.
And are the people spending a lot of time in the open studio? This is something must be very new to them.
Yeah, it's, a lot of times people come in first and they're like, well, what do I do? So we introduce ourselves, walk them through, typically start with the 8 different plans that were developed during the community on Saturday, which lists all the different ideas and recommendations that the citizens had. And then they see the list that we've created to try to synthesize all of those ideas. And then at each of the table they can see special projects being developed, renderings about renovating a building or renderings about how do we save the trees in certain areas. So it's been, I think, comprehensive. So it's there's a little something for everybody, we're hoping.
Well, we're hearing very good reports on it, and we're getting a lot of really nice publicity on it. We hope the public will enjoy the participation in such a great project. We'll talk more about this when we come back.
Freddie Wilfrick and Gregory Simpson invite you to Spotlight Indian River, weeknights at 6:30 and 10:30.
Attention! This important message is for any American who is about to turn 65 years of age or older. Nation's Helpline has Medicare supplement insurance news that may benefit you, your family, or someone you know. Most Americans who are about to turn 65 years old know they need Medicare supplement insurance, even if they already have Medicare. The Nation's Helpline Medicare supplement team can guide you and help answer your Medicare questions. Call today.
Please call 800-632-2804.
I'm here again with Dana Little, who is the Urban Design Director for the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, and we're talking about the plans for the Cultural Arts Village. Creating a plan to support a vision has many facets. What is the design process that the Planning Council is using to design the Cultural Arts Village?
Good question. We touched on this a little bit in the first segment. We like to employ the week-long public charrette process. Now, you at the Cultural Council and your leadership team have been critical to this because there's been months and months and months of behind-the-scenes work to make this happen. There's an awful lot of logistics, planning, and really trying to build a sense of anticipation and trust with the community before the process even starts. So kudos to you and your team. If we're successful, it's because you guys have done such a great job pulling it together. But once the charrette starts on Saturday, which was our workshop, we hear from the public on the Saturday workshop. We document things. The public develops their plans. Then we're back in the studio for the course of the week, which is where we are at the Hampton Inn. Our team is taking the ideas that were presented to us on Saturday and trying to develop diagrams, renderings, drawings, plans, etc., analyses that will help tell the story back to the community. This is what we think we heard, and these are the recommendations that we're putting forth to the city to try to address some of these issues. So as an example, on Saturday we heard, we don't want to see big 3-story buildings, for instance, even though the current zoning regulations allow 3-story buildings. So one of the things we're testing is that can you achieve the allowable densities, say, within the area in a smaller footprint, in a series of smaller buildings that are more compatible with the existing character, the historic character of the neighborhood. So we're developing those type of drawings, and as we move through the course of the week, today is Thursday, so tomorrow's Friday, we need to start wrapping some of this up, and come tomorrow evening on this at 6 o'clock on the 18th at the Heritage Center, we'll be presenting all these ideas back to the community. And this is really the first opportunity for us to hear back, you guys are on the right track, you heard what we said, or maybe we forgot something. I'm sure we forgot a few things. But also, to get some more feedback from the public as we go back to our offices after this week and develop a draft plan to bring back to the city. We touched on the public process, the engagement with the public through this. That's very important too. We're building champions for this plan, hopefully. Champions from the community, people that will feel like they have a sense of authorship in this process and in the actual recommendations and the drawings. And that they'll help to shepherd this forward because, of course, we will be gone. We're always connected to the City of Vero Beach as the Regional Planning Council, but, ultimately it's going to be up to the city and to the citizens to marshal whatever recommendations are appropriate forward. So this is really the beginning of that process, developing the physical plan, if you will, that the city and the community can support and then take forward into implementation.
I have been very pleased to see the consistency of the recommendations that people have come up with. It seems like so many people are seeing things pretty much the same way.
It's funny, that's one of the things I love about the process, because people who sometimes talk past one another and may not get along often share the same goals and ideas. So when you have them present their ideas in a public forum, number one, it takes some of the grandstanding out of it, but you tend to see that we all kind of want the same thing. Every community is different. Some cities want to be 20 stories, some cities want to be 2 stories, and that's okay. There's room for all of that. But what's important is that the people in the community, citizens and residents and business owners, hear from each other. And when we start to hear those threads of consensus, that's really important.
That's what makes it exciting, and we're going to talk more about this when we come back.
Join Marshall Littlejohn nightly at 5 and 9 on VeroBuzzTV.com.
Now that health reform is law, you cannot be denied health insurance coverage, but you can pay too much.
As a single mom, I was convinced that we could not afford health insurance until I spoke to the people from ICANN, who told me that I qualified for a special enrollment and a subsidized rate. Now I get so much more for so much less.
Call now and get the ICANN mobile app free. So don't wait another minute. Call ICANN, get covered, save money.
Dana, the research that you did prior to coming here was of the Edgewood Neighborhood. It's been quite extensive, You've been studying previous plans, you've been reviewing historic photographs from the library, you've been studying planning and zoning maps, walking and photographing the properties. What are your observations of the Edgewood neighborhood as it relates to a cultural arts village?
That's a good question. Yes, we have been trying to familiarize ourselves with the study area, of course. Not living here, though, we don't know it day in and day out, but being on site for a week makes a difference because we're driving through at night and we're seeing, how the dynamics of the neighborhood change. First of all, the neighborhood and downtown Vero in general have great bones. And what I mean by that is that there's a wonderful block structure, there's a wonderful network of streets, there's a magnificent alley system which should be cherished and protected, by the way. But the neighborhood itself, it follows many of the perfect planning principles, the traditional planning principles. For instance, you've got the inside of the neighborhood, which is predominantly residential in a mix of different residential densities. You've got single family with cottages, duplexes, and multifamily, which is great because that provides an opportunity for people of all walks of life to live within the neighborhood. Because there are a variety of different options. But the alley system allows the neighborhood to transition into commercial to the north along 60 or commercial to the east along 14th. Also, of course, there's the Freshman Learning Center, which is sort of in the epicenter of the neighborhood. And that has some tremendous positive opportunities for the whole cultural village idea. It also poses some aesthetic challenges as well that we'll try to address. Nothing against the building or its uses, but there are ways we think that we can soften the edge of that and make it more compatible with the neighborhood. We're seeing that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a magnificent tree canopy within the neighborhood that to the extent possible should be preserved. So in our master plan, we're drawing an overall master plan of the area. We're actually drawing in the major significant tree canopy, the tree stands. That's important because wherever we're suggesting an intervention, like if there's a large infill site that might be a candidate for redevelopment at some point in the future, we're trying to show how you could redevelop that site around the existing tree canopy. Mm-hmm. So things of that nature are really important. But the neighborhood itself, the structure is it's perfect. It's a wonderful canvas that's waiting to be finished.
I think that it's going to be really exciting for the residents to see the presentation next Friday night, or on Friday night, to see what you have done and how you have captured the ideas and the thoughts and actually the feelings of the people who actually reside in the community.
We hope so. We really hope, we've said from the beginning that this is meant to be an intensely local effort. Mm-hmm. And it's critical that we are consistent in our thought and direction with what the community's expectations are.
Okay, when we return after a short break, we're going to talk about what is this work in progress at this point for the Cultural Arts Village.
Watch Chamber Buzz at 6 and 10 p.m. Mondays and Wednesdays on VeroBuzzTV.com.
The Furniture Man is a locally owned business that has served the needs of the community of Vero Beach and Indian River County for over 30 years. Here at the Furniture Man, we offer fine pieces to furnish each and every room of your home. Specializing in Floridian style, come browse our selection of bedroom, dining room, patio, and living room. Come explore over 10,000 square feet of showroom, where you can find mattresses, recliners, sofas, dining, and more. Visit us at 673 US 1 in Vero Beach, Monday through Saturday for all of your furniture needs.
The last day of the 7-day charrette is a public presentation titled Work in Progress. This presentation offers suggestions on the plan for a cultural arts village. What were some of the suggestions offered the Vero Beach Cultural Arts Village at this stage of the plan? What is it going to look like?
Well, as I mentioned, we're doing an overall master plan drawing of the area. Which illustrates existing conditions and also areas where we expect interventions or redevelopment may occur over time. some of the things that we've heard that I think we'll try to address, the issues of gentrification, for instance. Are we pushing people out to move other people in? And that's never the intention. In fact, that's not a recommendation at all. What we think is that there are enough vacant properties within the neighborhood today that might be candidates for new construction, that we're illustrating, what the character of those should be. There are other interventions that could occur, for instance, beefing up the tree canopy within the neighborhood. There are some streets that are beautifully shaded, other streets, in fact, right in front of the Freshman Learning Center on 19th, that are really pretty bleak, that could use some additional work. The notion of bicycle facilities, we've talked about that. Now, we're going out on a limb in some cases because there's going to require cooperation and collaboration between the city and, say, the Indian River County School District in order to utilize some of the Freshman Learning Center property, or to maybe over time build a relationship where there can be shared parking opportunities with some of the asphalt and some of the parking lots that they have. So really, what we're trying to do in this work in progress presentation is tee up some concepts that will require, attention and development over time. And relationships, building, relationships between local governments and agencies and private citizens is part of this. We've heard a lot about the parking problem, which I find interesting because, you still have a lot of vacancies, and not a lot of vacancies, but the town isn't completely built out yet. Yet there's a perception that there's a parking problem. Question is it real or is it really perceived? So we're trying to get to the bottom of that as well.
Well, you talk about the 5-minute
walking radius, right?
Yes. Can you talk about that?
Well, we use what we call the 5-minute walking radius, which is a radius of about 1,350 feet. As a sort of planning tool to understand the general size and area that someone will typically walk to get to a destination. What's been shown over time is that people will walk typically about 5 minutes to go somewhere before they decide to get in their car and drive. If it's 7 or 10 minutes, unless you're doing it for recreation or exercise purposes, it can be a little too much. That changes, though, a little bit relative to restaurants and destinations. So one of the things we'll show tomorrow evening is this notion of scale and what the expectations are for a patron, say, to walk from a parking lot to a restaurant, and how you can expand that. And different tools that other cities have used, be it valet or shuttles, we've already discussed, or has been brought up with the Art Walk. So it'll be the first chance to really discuss that in depth, looking at the plan.
Any mention of the diesel plant?
There's been a lot of discussion about the diesel plant. I think there's a lot of ideas for what the diesel plant could be, but I think that most people that we've talked to recognize that it is a huge opportunity. What the use might be, it depends upon who you talk to, but the question also is, what is the future of that? So that's kind of on hold.
Okay, we're going to return shortly after a short break with Dana Little, the Urban Design Director for the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council.
Join us for an adventure weekdays at 4:30 and 8:30 on Buzz TV Network.
Attention! This important message is for any American who is about to turn 65 years of age or older. Nation's Helpline has Medicare supplement insurance news that may benefit you, your family, or someone you know. Most Americans who are about to turn 65 years old know they need Medicare supplement insurance, even if they already have Medicare. The Nation's Helpline Medicare supplement team can guide you and help answer your Medicare questions. Call today.
Please call 800-632-2804.
Dana, what happens after the work in progress presentation? When a final draft is submitted to the Cultural Arts Village team, working with the city manager, we have about 9 months to finalize those plans for the presentation and approval of the city council. Once it has been developed and approved, what happens?
Well, immediately after the work in progress presentation, we go to sleep. We rest up for a little bit, but honestly, we take the input, hopefully, that we'll receive tomorrow evening at the work in progress presentation back to the office and develop a package, a report, if you will, of all of these ideas, the images, of the entire process. We've got a lot of great photographs from Scott Kelly of the Saturday session and throughout the studio. And then we'll bring those back to the city as a series of pointed recommendations, things that can be done, in the very near term, things that might take a little while in the midterm, and some of those longer range things that need to be done. I have been saying to folks from the beginning that, they said, well, how do you plan a village for artists? And I said, well, first and foremost, we're kind of looking at this as a neighborhood revitalization plan with a bias towards the arts. And what I mean by that is that we want to preserve and protect the character to the extent possible of what's there, make sure that any new construction is consistent, but also really where the arts part comes in is modifying the allowable uses and some of the zoning regulations that pertain to the area. For instance, live work, allowing that to occur and defining what that is. Maybe limited lodging is something we've talked about within the neighborhood district. And so one of the recommendations, and I didn't think this up, this actually came out of the leadership group. I mean, you guys have been thinking about this from the beginning, but as an overlay district for specific to the cultural arts village. And so tomorrow night we're going to be presenting what we think some of the core components of that overlay might be. So the idea is that we bring back the recommendations, the report, that'll be reviewed by staff, yourself, the leadership team, elected officials, and really at that point it's up to, we'll get some revisions and we'll go back and forth on that, but then it's up to the city to decide how they want to proceed. Some cities like to straight out adopt this as a vision for this district and then begin to, that sort of sends a message that we are going to start implementing this. One thing that's important though, because people ask this a lot, who's paying for this project? Who's going to pay for the implementation? And one thing that we always like to say is that this is not a single project. This is not, we're not working for a developer. I mean, this isn't a single effort. It's not, funded by a single source. This is really many, many, many projects with a role for everybody to play. I mean, the city has a role. The neighborhood has a role in terms of getting more organized and becoming a stronger presence as a neighborhood. So really, and ultimately, it'll be the private sector that will implement this. Yes. We're just sort of setting the table and setting the expectations of the community to the private sector when they begin to invest in the neighborhood.
Well, it's going to be an interesting project to follow, an interesting process to follow, and the Cultural Council is really committed to making this vision a reality. And the work that you have done and your staff have done has been most helpful. It's been very exciting, it's been creative, and that's been a lot of the fun.
Great, thank you.
So we will be coming back to meet with, to talk with Dana in our last segment, but I just wanted to throw out, check our website. It's www.VeroBeachCulturalArtsVillage.com.
Watch Sebastian Plus at 7 and 11 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays on SebastianBuzzTV.com. Stop by Patty's Printing and Graphics in downtown Vero Beach. Owner Patty Callahan prints it all, from color and black and white copies to blueprints, banners, signs, prints of paintings, and fine art. Patty makes restorations and creates outstanding graphic designs. Call Patty at 770-1521 or stop by Patty's Printing and Graphics at 2345 14th Avenue. Stop by for all of your printing needs at Patty's Printing and Graphics across from the old railroad station in downtown Vero Beach.
Dana, you and your team's experience and professionalism have been so important in turning a vision into a viable plan. Your stress of the importance of the physical vision of the work. Explain what you mean by that.
So the term physical vision, what we mean by that is that, as an example, the Cultural Council and the community have been developing a mission and a vision for the last 2 years for this area. And as a narrative, which is very helpful because it sort of solidifies what the intent is in words. However, what we do is try to take that and put it into a physical drawn plan, something that is measurable, something that can ultimately even be costed out. And is broken up into lots of little pieces. So the notion of a physical plan is that it's something you can look at. It's a blueprint, if you will, for how to move policy forward. And so it's really important because, you know, as to use the old cliche, a picture does tell 1,000 words, say 1,000 words. And oftentimes we see that folks that may not agree about something or seemingly don't agree about something, once they see a picture of it, then it tends to make a lot of sense. That also helps to build and inspire interest. You know, if we do our job right, hopefully we're building interest in this area. And finally, you know, to be able to draw a plan, it really helps the policy decision makers, you know, understand, well, if we're going to create a new district, what are the boundaries of that district? Does it go to this street or does it go to that street? And should we include this area? By the way, as a side note, one thing we've heard a lot of is, why didn't you take in all of the downtown in the planning effort? So we've tried to explain that, you know, this is really meant to focus on a smaller area. But, you know, what we have found for decades now, I think, is that the strongest incentive that you can provide for investors and developers is predictability. In the sense that if I'm going to come in and invest in a neighborhood or invest in a community, that I have some assurance that that the direction that I'm going in is consistent with what the city wants, that the city has a clear vision of who they are and what they want to be. Right now, you don't know. If I was to invest in the Edgewood neighborhood right now, I'm not really sure what my neighbor would end up doing. You know, I don't know. There's a zoning code that's pretty clear, but there's no clear vision for what the area wants to be. So we're hoping to provide that, and ultimately the pictures will turn into policy, which then turns into predictability for the investment community, but actually more importantly it's predictability for the residents that live there, that their neighborhood's not going to be turned inside out into some foreign object that they don't recognize.
Well, it's a very, very exciting project, and we are looking forward to the next year and seeing what happens. We have kind of set a goal as to September of 2016 to present a pretty finished plan to the City Council for their vote. And there are some things, though, that we can complete even before we get there, get to the very final date. So this project is going to be ongoing. Visit the website again of the Vero Beach Cultural Arts Village, www.verobeachculturalartsvillage.com. Thank you, Dana Little, Urban Design Director for the Regional Planning Council, for your assistance in helping to make this vision and for the Vero Beach Cultural Arts Village a reality, and for talking with us today. And thank you, viewers, for watching Arts in Depth, presented by the Cultural Council of Indian River County.
See Arts in Depth with Barbara Hoffman, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 and 10 p.m.
Now that health reform is law, you cannot be denied health insurance coverage, but you can pay too much.
As a single mom, I was convinced that we could not afford health insurance until I spoke to the people from ICANN, who told me that I qualified for a special enrollment and a subsidized rate. Now I get so much more for so much less.
Call now and get the ICANN mobile app free. So don't wait another minute. Call ICANN, get covered, save money.